Hello and welcome to the Lou Review podcast. I'm your host, Rosa Hart, and today I'm joined by local restaurateur Kevin Grangier. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Rose. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, it's so exciting to finally get to meet you. Well, we met the other day in Fonte's Coffee House, and that was just a lovely experience because we were kind of sitting in the window area. It kind of feels like sitting in a snow globe in the winter with all
hmm
those pretty windows.
hmm
So,
Yeah.
and before we start talking, I wanted to just point out to our viewers, if you're watching this on YouTube, take a look at his ceiling, okay? Like you can see his personality in his restaurants, I think. And this is your home, right?
That's correct. I'm in my library.
This is beautiful. I'm so impressed. So, I think a lot of people may have read about you because you're kind of nationally known as a brand marketer, but you're from Louisville originally, right?
Southern Indiana, Sellersburg.
Okay, Southern
Yep.
Indiana.
I lived there until I was 18, and then I moved. I went away to school at WKU,
Oh,
and uh, came back home for a few years, and then that's when I left town.
okay. And you went to Los Angeles?
I went to Milwaukee. Actually, I worked for
Oh,
Miller Brewing Company in house in brand marketing. That
nice.
was my first foray into really, marketing that I know it today.
Had, had you studied marketing in college at
I
WKU?
studied communication
Hmm.
and hospital administration, of all things.
I wondered about that because as I was researching for interviewing you, you said Charlotte Tharp was really
Yeah,
impactful for you as
very,
a leader.
very, very important to me. She was definitely an inspiration in my life at an early age, and we were very close, remained close until she died just a couple years ago.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
loss.
yeah. Those people, they live on forever in our
hmm
memory.
Yeah, they sure do.
Yeah. So, did you get into you got into marketing after the healthcare administration bit? So, what?
Well, I did. I was an intern at Norton
Okay.
in the public relations, marketing communication department. And at the same period, not the same time, but right after that, I was an intern in the administration office. And uh, I interned there, I think, for 2 summers. And because to capitalize on my healthcare, background. But I actually, right out of college, I went to work. I was in the banking business. I did an internship in San Francisco with Bank of America, and
Oh,
that opened the door for me to do. And these are all in marketing communication or PR. Opened the door for me to do an internship with Farm Credit Banks, and that's so I started out really in the banking industry for some odd reason. And then I went back to Norton full time, and I was there for about 5 years, 6 years.
that's awesome. Did you
Yeah.
go back for Charlotte?
Yes, definitely. She was an inspiration to me, and she was a consummate professional, and I learned certainly the foundation of my communication skills, including to some degree marketing, was from Bill Loader, who used to be at WHAS, and Charlotte. That's where she was for years before she came to
Oh,
Norton.
that's
Um, and I had the really great privilege of working with both of them for a number of years. And it's at that point that I went across the river to Floyd Memorial Hospital, and I was their head of, gosh, I don't remember my title. I think it was marketing.
hmm.
Um, and I was there for a couple years, and then I always wanted to work I always wanted to work in the spirits,
Oh, okay.
category, but I had no really consumer product experience, much less
Hmm.
alcohol specific. But I got a call from a headhunter one day. Her name was Smooch Reynolds, and
Smooch?
Smooch, yeah, that
Oh,
was her real name.
okay.
She was a big headhunter in the U.S., but based out of Los Angeles, and she tried to place me at a pharmaceutical company in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Oh.
And I don't remember I honestly don't remember if I got offered the job or they offered me the job and I didn't want it or something, but I didn't end up there. I told her that if I were going to make a move, I really didn't want to go down the healthcare path. And I've been doing it at that time for, 7 or 8 years. And I said I wanted to do spirits. So right after that, she placed me at Miller Brewing Company, and I was marketing communications. I was a brand manager for Miller Lite, Miller High Life,
Mm-hmm.
Miller Junior Draft, and Miller Beer. So it was a swift transition, but I mean it was a big transition, but very swift into large scale consumer brands. And Miller at that time was owned by Philip Morris. So I was fortunate enough to be able to do a few things for Philip Morris and learn a little more about crisis management,
Yeah.
and I did that for a number of years, and then that's when I made my way to Los Angeles.
Okay. So, in crisis management, did that really feed into learning about branding specifically, or?
Crisis management was an extension. We did a lot of crisis management in the hospitals,
Yeah,
quite,
exactly.
quite quite a bit actually. And I had a really good foundation there, but I didn't have consumer product
Mm.
experience, and um, I I felt very comfortable with crisis management by the time I left there.
And got to
We were
Miller.
faced with a number of things, and I felt like I had a good foundation there. But
Yeah.
what really happened was it exposed me to consumer products, um, marketing, communication, and marketing, and working with really some of the biggest agencies in the world, because my brands were solid, large brands,
Yeah. You
and
weren't having to build a brand out of nothing and introduce it to people. You were able to like just operate, like maintain it.
well, we created a couple brands when I was
Yeah.
there, so I got to experience it a lot. It was just a huge stepping stone for me, and I got to work with some really smart people, um, great Fortune 100 companies,
Hmm.
and large agencies. And when I decided to leave Miller after a few years, I just because I'd spent so much time traveling to LA and New York, I just decided I wanted to go to one of those cities
Yeah.
and work for a consumer product in an agency because I didn't have agency background myself. I
Mm.
was responsible for some big agencies, but I didn't have that background myself in terms of working in an agency. So I put my feelers out and I said I was going to take the first job that I liked in one of those two cities. And the first job I was offered was with Hill and Knowlton, in Los Angeles. Which at the time was the biggest public relations firm I think in the world, and they had a lot of owned by Omnicom, and they had a lot of marketing agencies under their belt also. So I went to work there and did that for a couple years, and
And were you finally able to work with spirits then?
nope.
Not still not. Okay.
Oddly enough, I got into digital,
Okay.
which I'd never done technology or digital, and I was charged with launching digital cable across the United States,
Oh my.
and that was, you know, that that definitely sort of rounded out my experiences, I think. So I left after a couple of years because I'd worked at that time for probably 11 years, 12 years, just nonstop, 60
Mhm.
hours a week or 70. And
Yeah.
I just decided it, I was going to take some time off and enjoy Los Angeles.
Okay.
And that's what happened for about a week.
Did
Um,
you get bored?
I didn't get bored at all. I, uh, I was, I was sitting at home, and one of the great things about Miller,
Mhm.
was that when I worked there, it was with the brand directors, very senior, a lot of experience. They all went on to careers with large national companies, and uh, a woman by the name of Meredith Hanrahan went to work for Lent Chocolate, And she called me, and I'm like, it was about a week after I'm out. And she goes, "We just had a terrible accident with a kid who was allergic to chocolate,
Oh,
and we need to hire a crisis management firm. Are you available to do this?" And I thought, I can do this, you
yeah.
know? So that was really how the agency started, and how I built this consumer um, communication agency, over the next
Wow.
12 years of my life.
That's amazing. And so, at what point did you decide to move back to Louisville and the
I
Kentucky
worked.
area?
I worked in the agency for uh, 12 years. We grew to have offices in 5 cities, major cities, and then the .com industry began to bust.
Hmm.
And there were two reasons I got out of the agency business, and one is that I was tired, and growing an agency as fast as we grew over the course of 10 or 12 years just exhausted me.
Yeah.
And what I learned, and every agency person will tell you, is fact. You don't really want to believe it up front, but it's fact. You're always being ready to lose a piece of business, which has to be replaced by another piece of business.
Yeah.
Always. And you never want to be caught in a situation where you can't support an office because you lose the biggest account. So we were constantly adding business, and um, that meant growing offices and opening new offices on behalf of clients. And that just began to eat at me after about 8 years. It just absolutely just tore me up. And about that ninth or 10th year is when we had taken on, like every agency, a lot of uh, .com clients. At the very early stages, you remember that,
Hmm.
before the big bubble burst. And that's when I decided I couldn't do it anymore. I didn't want to have to continue to drive all these offices, and so many clients were cutting their budgets because of the whole, economy and the environment. And it was a good time for me to exit the agency. I transitioned some of the accounts to employees. Um, a number of them went to key players in my other offices. Um, I chose to bow out while the agency was, you know, well known, and still with some very good accounts. But it was the right thing for me to do at that time, and I had the option of going to New York, staying in LA, or coming back to Louisville, where my parents were getting older, and my sister, my twin sister, and my brother, they were all here, and that was 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So I made that decision, but I came back in a big way.
Yeah.
I immediately, I had bought a house, Bellwood, which a lot of people have seen,
Hmm.
um, about 5 years, 3 or 4 years before I came back to Kentucky, because I always wanted a place here. And so I already had this house. It was very easy for me to come back here. But I had a chef working for me, because the house Bellwood served as a congregation center for
Hmm.
all my offices. It was kind of in the middle of the United States, and we would all meet there and have meetings. That's how I justified having this house.
Love it.
And,
Love
and
it.
as a result of that, I had a full-time chef. And when I came back and I no longer had these offices, um, I just had this, I guess it was a bright idea, that because there wasn't a restaurant near my house in Anchorage, that I should build a restaurant. And
Yes.
most people would call that crazy, because it is crazy. Um,
Because it is crazy.
it is crazy.
You would not be
I'd
wrong.
never worked in a restaurant. I mean, I worked at Burger Queen, where I got fired for cooking hamburgers raw. You know, that's what I
Well,
think is my
I'm
that's
glad to hear they didn't let you get away with that.
no, they didn't, but
Okay.
it really I guess started my affinity for Midwest steaks.
Okay, okay, yeah.
But I asked Chef, um, his name was Jeff Heidi, who went on to open a number of restaurants in Louisville. He currently owns Fork and Barrel and another restaurant, I think. So he transitioned to what would become Village Anchor, and that became my first restaurant.
And it is so lovely. I just adore it.
Yeah, took a long time to get there, but
What
uh,
year did that open?
it's 15 years old this year,
Okay, so
so that would have
2010.
been 10.
Wow.
Yeah, 2010.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's amazing.
and it's been going strong since then.
Now, I actually moved to Louisville in 2010.
Uh-huh.
So but I didn't discover the Village Anchor until 2020. So it was
But that's
already
that.
really established. So that's
Yeah.
And
So,
I'm so
yeah.
glad that you built something out here. I live in Middletown and we
All
have
right.
a distinct lack of n nicer sit down
Uh-huh.
restaurants for a long time. Finally, Lulu Middletown is here, and so
Mm-hmm.
that's been refreshing as well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what came next? Was it Lemu or Grassa Gramma?
I have a problem that I get bored at about 3 years every 5 years. At about 3 years in,
Okay.
I get bored.
It
And
takes more than a week, though.
takes more than a week because
Yeah.
I'm so tired by the time I open one, you know,
Hmm.
and with it for a year, the
Hmm.
next 2 years I'm just getting really fidgety. You know, by year three, I have to do something else, and that's what happens. What's happened in every case. 3 years after Village Anchor opened, 3.5 years or whatever, I got bored and I wanted to own. I always wanted a steak restaurant,
Okay.
and I came up with the name a long time ago, Lemu,
Hmm.
because I felt like there was a need for a steakhouse that um, represented both men and women, masculine, feminine, and I wanted to be a restaurant that was kind of like every man's, not the cheapest, but
Hmm.
every man or woman's restaurant. That's why um, Lemu is very dark in many ways. It's heavy iron and wood
Hmm.
and bronze and steel, but it's all overlaid with velvets and
Hmm.
chandeliers and crystal and artwork. And so I wanted to create this masculine, feminist, masculine and feminine environment, which is what le mou means. Le represents it's French,
Hmm.
and that's a feminine language. And moo, everybody thinks is also French. It's not. Never was. Moo is just moo. Moo. It's the sound a cow makes. So
It's that fancy.
yeah, it's that fancy. So that's how the moo was never. When I first opened it, the newspaper, everybody would spell it Mous
Oh no.
or Mouxe or something. And I was always correcting people that it really was Moo. And when they understood it, it's kind of funny. But
Yeah,
but
yeah.
that's what Lemieux turned into, and it was it was and is um, still a very unique restaurant, in
Yeah.
a perfect part of town.
It really is
Hmm.
positioned very strategically, I feel
Hmm.
like, at the corner of
Corner of
Lexington.
Lexington and Grinstead.
Yeah. So, and I feel it has a lot of similarities with the Village Anchor. You
Hmm.
also have like a lot of the red velvet at Village
Hmm.
Anchor, which I love. Um, but the you don't have it might seem fancier, but at
Hmm.
the same time, so let me ask you again about the ceiling.
Hmm.
When you made Village Anchor, when did
Hmm.
you decide to put all the portraits on the ceiling? Was that when you got bored, or was that from the beginning?
Village Anchor, uh, which a lot of people don't know, when I designed it, it was meant to be a brothel. It was meant to look like a brothel. Very Moulin
Oh,
Rouge, heavy red velvets, and I
gotcha.
actually had the silhouettes of female dancers in the windows.
Oh.
That was the plan, but that got poo-pooed by Anchorage. So I changed my strategy a little bit, but it's still, very, damask wallpaper with a lot of
Mhm.
velvet on the wallpaper, and it's black and red. And if you've seen Moulin Rouge, that was my inspiration
Yeah.
for that restaurant. Um, I chose the ceilings for the art because the restaurant's all windows.
Right.
And I'm a huge art person. In all of my restaurants, you'll find a lot
Yeah.
of art.
Yeah.
Um, very nice art,
Yeah.
regular art, but I'm an art collector.
Hmm.
And the only place for it was on the ceiling. So I thought I can do that. So I got with someone and we backlit them. We
Yeah.
made boxes and backlit them, and had these really beautiful frames installed on the ceiling, and it's kind of become a moniker, if you will,
Mhm.
of the restaurant. And I love that it also fills up the space in a space that would normally be overlooked,
Yeah.
that a lot of people overlook, but it's really the greatest opportunity for part of the experience. And funny, on that same note, um, if you've ever been in the Village Anchor, you will notice, if you look, that the liquor license and the warnings are all on the ceiling, um, because I didn't ever like them being in your face because they never matched anything. They were always, and I couldn't redo them.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, so I asked I guess the investigator or the person in charge of handing out those licenses.
Hmm.
I didn't say I was going to put it on the ceiling, but I said, how far can it be from the bar?
Mm.
On these warning signs, and he said, I think he said like 8 feet or something like that. Well, I took my I took out my measuring tape and I measured from that bar top to the top of the ceiling, and I think it was exactly 8 feet.
Oh my goodness.
So that's
I
how
love
they
the
landed on the
precision.
ceiling.
Does that count as malicious compliance?
Probably.
Not that malicious. I mean,
Yeah,
it
it's
was
not that malicious.
strategic. You were
Um,
working towards the aesthetic.
yeah, you still see them. They're up there. They're white against the black ceiling,
Very
so they still
visible.
stand out. But I thought it was a clever way to accomplish what I guess needed to be accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we met the requirements of both people. Let's just say that.
Yes, exactly. It's
Now I'll probably get a call tomorrow making me take him down.
oh no. You were perfectly compliant. I don't know how they could do that. So, um, so it was because of the brothel idea that the checks
That's
come
where the
out in
heavy
romance
velvet.
novels?
I'm sorry, say again.
So the checks come out in romance
Uh
novels
huh.
at Village Anchor, but also at Lemieux. So,
Uh
but
huh.
Lemieux's theme is not a brothel.
No,
So,
they
is that
started out
the concept?
right. They started out. I wanted basically dirty books
Mm-hmm.
coming out with a check because that was very brothelish.
Mm-hmm.
And we're able to continue that there for the most part, except that I bought every romance novel in a three-state region over the past 15 years. They're very hard to come by anymore.
Yeah.
And at Lemieux, they started out as westerns.
Okay.
They were Western romances mostly, but they all had a Western theme.
Yeah.
And the passage of time, because I can't find very many Western, I could when I opened it because nobody was buying them, and I was getting them everywhere. But passage of time, you just can't find them and they're
Mm.
expensive to get. So we just have gone to regular romance books there. But they were originally supposed to be um, Western, cowboy. And my favorite one, um, I just remember this. My favorite book happened that I ever got was at Lemieux, and it was of a cowboy and his gal, if you will, on the cover of the cover of the book, and she's pregnant.
Oh.
And the title of the book is 9 months later, and he looks like me.
Okay.
which I always thought was just hilarious. So I saved that book. I have it upstairs. Um,
I think I heard something about how babies are somewhat des designed to not be recognized by their fathers.
Mm,
And in one way, there I think it's in a certain species of monkeys perhaps that
mm.
will the female once she gets pregnant will make sure to mate with like all of the males so that they all suspect it's their baby so they won't kill it.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's novel way.
Right. So
Novel approach.
it just made me think of that when you said it looks like me because it's like, I don't know
I
that.
didn't. I didn't know that about monkeys.
Well, I don't know what species it was. I'll have to look it up afterwards because now it got me thinking about it.
It
So,
kind of makes sense,
right,
but
it's
yeah.
protective. Yeah.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm. I like
and
it.
wants to
I think
protect.
cats. I think cats do the same thing.
And it might have been cats now that I think about it because my son was showing me some not Natural Geographic,
Hmm.
but like something about big cats.
Hmm.
He loves cats too.
Hmm.
Speaking of which, let's
Yeah.
go to Grassa Gramma because you have a special um, booth dedicated to cats there.
Hmm. Well, it's dedicated to animals. A lot of cats, but
Because you love cats.
cats are. I love cats.
Do you
Yeah.
have any?
Yes, I have four. I have three indoor and one outdoor.
Oh, okay.
And if you are anywhere within 50 miles of me, you will know that I lost my favorite one. His name was Nugget,
Oh,
a year ago, and
I'm so sorry.
it was a major loss in my life. So I stepped it up in terms of cat rescues and saving kittens, which is how I got the other three.
Oh,
Um, yeah,
was he a yellow cat? Is that why he
no,
is?
it was gray.
He was gray.
Uh-huh.
Where did he get
Yep.
that name Nugget?
I rescued him when he was 1.5 ounces. I rescued him and his siblings. There were, I think, five of them,
Hmm.
and three of them died because I only rescue. Um, my past has pretty much been filled with rescuing kittens without mothers. So because they don't have mothers, they're often very sick,
Yeah.
and it's very hard. It's very hard. You see one coming across the.
Yeah.
That's Boo Boo. He came out of a dumpster in Nashville.
Oh, does
Yeah,
he
Boo.
know you're talking about him?
He must.
He's like,
Um,
this is my time to shine.
hey, buddy. He uh, I lost my train of thought.
Oh, that's good. You found Nugget. He was an
Oh, he was 1.5 ounces, which is why I took him into animal hospital, and that's Boo.
hi.
I
Oh,
took him into the animal hospital, and they made me give him a name right away. Um, and so I called him Nugget because he was only,
yeah.
this big. And we just bonded. He was in an incubator for a month, and I
Oh,
had people move into the house, and we took care of that little guy for months. Three people feeding every single day and night,
just for that
and
one, or were you
just for
working
that
with the
one.
siblings
He
too?
was the sickest.
Oh,
Yeah, he was the sickest.
but the other
Um,
three died. You said.
yeah, but they died before. Um, let's see how that happened. No, they died in the process, but
Hmm.
they didn't. They weren't sick. It was really odd.
Weird.
Um, I'll come back to the Nugget story in just a second, but I'd learned from that experience that they died of hyperthermia and they were healthy and robust and playing around. In fact, when one of them died, I was playing with him outside and he just fell over, and then the other one fell over, and then another one fell over.
So hyperthermia, as in too much heat?
No,
No.
uh, no, they were too cold.
Okay, hypothermia. Okay,
Hypothermia.
gotcha.
Good, good. I forgot that. So I learned that the first thing to do when you find an animal, and the same way they do at the hospital,
Hmm.
is get you warm, no
Yeah.
matter what the situation is.
Yeah.
And I'm not a medical, person, but
Hmm.
that's what you do with animals is you get them warm, and because that's where they, I guess, are lacking.
Especially
So
babies.
yeah.
Hmm.
So I also learned, and I think this is accurate, that the reason um, everybody thinks that the reason why um, the mother exists for the kitten is to feed them. Of course, that's one way, but really, I think the bigger way, from what I've learned, is that she wraps around them and maintains their body temperature.
Yeah.
And when they don't have that, it's very hard to keep them alive. It takes a long time to get them better. So anyway, Nugget, man, you know, he came out of it, and he was on prednisone his entire life, which is ultimately what killed him.
Aw,
But he had a great life. He lived for 7 years. He became my best friend,
aw.
and I learned a lot through that experience that I carry with me today, and that's why I have this, real affection for kittens. And like I said, anybody who knows me knows that I would do anything. I mean, I would to save a cat or a kitten or a puppy.
Yeah.
But I happen to have a thing for kittens.
Yeah.
But that's why.
You don't have to take them on walks like you do dogs.
No,
That's right.
no. I don't have to take them on walks. And I had a golden retriever for 14 years, and he was an amazing, beautiful dog. But when he unfortunately died at 14,
Hmm.
because I was traveling all over the place at the agency,
Yeah.
and I just said I can't handle taking care of another dog. And
Yeah.
so I switched to cats.
Yeah. It's a big commitment. I
Hmm.
know, but I love rescuing little kittens too.
Hmm.
When I was little, I grew up on a farm and I found a mama cat, and she was protecting and hiding her babies.
Hmm.
And I told my parents I tamed this cat. I don't think they knew what I was doing because I went to play in the woods
Hmm.
and I took like some kind of lunch meat or some kind of food with me. And like I would get kind of close to her and lay the food out and then sit there and walk away and sit there and watch her come and eat it. And she let me get closer and closer.
Oh,
And
good.
it took a
Hmm.
couple of days.
That's rare. It
She
usually
was
takes longer than that.
yeah, well, she was very ferocious. She
Hmm.
really was. I saw that cat take down 5 dogs that came within
Hmm.
proximity of her
Just
baby. They
beat
didn't
the
even
heck
get
out of them.
close, but she took them down. And and I called her Miss Kitty. She was a boss, and I always loved her.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that mama kitty bond is powerful.
Yeah,
So,
so at each of the restaurants, not just Grassa Gramma, but I have booths where it will cost you 10% more to sit there. It's the Hermes booth at Bourbon Steakhouse, and it is Louis Vuitton at Les Mous, and it is Gucci at Grassa Gramma, and the new Japanese sushi restaurant Saki Agogo. There are two Japanese wedding beds that's what they were, wedding beds, and I turned them into booths.
okay.
And it's floor seating in those beds, but 10% upcharge. But that all goes to animal rescue, and it varies. People are always asking at what particular cause. It it totally varies.
Yeah.
It's been random. I've supported fundraisers before by writing checks. I've heard about somebody who found a dog and he had to have a big surgery and
Mm.
paid for that. Many things that these funds go to, but it's across the board. I clearly have a love for kittens and cats, but it does affect all animals.
Yeah, and tell me about your love of big cats. Where do you think that comes from?
I love, I guess because it's just a cat.
Well, and
Um,
it's bigger, so it's
no, it is
more to
bigger, but
love.
it's still a cat.
Yeah.
Um, I was exposed physically to. Do you remember a guy by the name of Tim Stark? I grew up
Yeah.
with him. He was
From
my.
from Tiger King. He was not
Yeah,
the Tiger King, but he's like the
yeah.
local
He was
version.
in the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he did kind of the same thing,
Hmm.
and he was my neighbor. And years later, long after I left Southern Indiana, um, I was reintroduced to him, and on a number of occasions, I was able to play with cubs. And one of the most beautiful, and they were very loved. These cubs were very loved, and um, I could tell they were happy, and I could tell uh, that they weren't, mistreated in any way. And that was my experience with them. And I fortunately went to his, I guess, compound
Hmm.
on a couple of occasions and was able to. see all the animals, not just the cubs, but um, all of them. And I was exposed really, by touching a lot of them, and it just gave me this love for a totally different breed that I had never been exposed to before.
Yeah,
To see them right up close and to actually touch them, man, they're massive and they're
right.
beautiful. Yeah, and we can argue all day long about captivity and
Well,
how they're treated, and I'm not going to go down that path
yeah.
because in many ways I don't agree with it or like it. But there are instances where um, the exposure to them has changed my life and others, and um, that is what it is. But
Mhm.
um,
I think
yeah,
a
I
lot
have
of
a great
people feel
respect
that
for
way
them.
about zoos in general,
Yeah,
right?
they do. Uh
Yeah.
huh.
I,
No
I
question.
yeah, I have friends who won't go to the zoo for the same reason.
Hmm.
So, but at the same
Yeah,
time,
and I
there's-
understand that 100%.
yeah. But there's also the argument that maybe they're keeping them alive and whether
Hmm.
they'd go extinct
Hmm.
otherwise.
It
So,
could go, like I said, it could
either
go
way.
either direction. Um, I understand how somebody would, or how we
Hmm.
would feel like that could be cruel, and they're not given their natural environment to be in. But I understand the other side, so
Yeah,
I
exactly.
can't be pinned in a corner there.
Right. It's not all that simple. There are
No.
gray areas, right?
Hmm.
So, tell me some more about now. Do you want to talk about Bourbon next because
Sure.
it's been open longer, and we can talk
Hmm.
about sake last since
Hmm.
that's the latest to open?
Hmm.
All right.
So again, in line with my 3-year, 5-year plan, or
Your
strategy,
boredom plan?
yeah, boredom happened at Lemieux at 3 years, and
Oh,
then I took 2 years to build uh, Grassa. So
okay.
there's 5 years there, and then Grassa at uh, 2.5 years, I got bored and started building sake.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
no, excuse me,
No.
Bourbon and sake at the same time.
Yeah, like
I
because they're
know.
opened really close together,
Yes, and it's the craziest thing I've ever done, and I don't think I will ever. Well, I won't. I won't open two at the same time ever
and they're
again.
not really remotely similar.
No, not at all.
So how did that happen in your head? Were you full of two ideas at once, or
I
how?
was approached about participating with the hotel,
Okay.
and it took me a long time to decide that I was going to do that because I had actually already began the process of sake. Um, but I decided for some reason that I felt like I could do it with the right help and right support,
Mhm.
which was constantly available to me at with the hotel because it was a major project with
Yeah.
you know with a lot of people that contributed a lot to that process. So I
Your part
felt
was
like
mostly the restaurant, right?
no, it started out all food and beverage, and
Okay.
all the common areas,
Ooh.
which is mostly food and beverage.
Yeah.
The ballroom and the space outside the ballroom, the rooftop bar, the restaurant, and then originally it was also room service and the ballroom service, and so it was a big project. But
Hmm.
so I thought that I could do both, and I did do both. It
Hmm.
turned out that both are great and they look great. The menus are great. They're on good footing starting out, and that's the most that I can hope for. But it was hard. It was a real challenge, and yeah, they opened about 6 weeks apart from each other. You know,
Right.
and what I did is
Bourbon.
I focused on both all the time, and then when it came to that opening period of a couple months, I quit working on sake, dedicated all my time to Bourbon, and then the second Bourbon opened, I went to sake.
You had Bourbon open before Derby, right?
Just before Derby.
So was it full for Derby?
Yes, it
Yes.
was, and but it opened. It soft launched about a month, 5 weeks before Derby. So
So you had some
we had
practice time.
yeah, good foothold, I think. But it was Derby. It's crazy and a lot of guests, and I'm sure a learning experience in many ways. And Saki was open at the at Derby too. The only difference is we were in soft launch at Derby, and I wouldn't take more than 60 guests.
Yeah.
Period. Just wouldn't do more than 60
Right.
during soft launch. So that just automatically was a lot. lot more manageable. But
Definitely.
I love I love the hotel. I love Bourbon. My chef at Lemieux, Henry Wesley, became the chef
Yes.
at Bourbon. He's
Yes.
doing a great job. He's got a great team over there, um, and it's a privilege to continue to work with him and Nick Camposano and Greg Larson and Mark Camposano, the builder. You know, I've got a great relationship with all of them, and
Have you
it's.
worked with them on other projects before?
I worked with Camposano in opening Grassa and
Oh, okay.
building and opening Grassa, and the second project was um, Bourbon and also Lemieux.
Oh,
I
okay.
worked with Camposano to build Lemieux as well,
With
or build
Mark.
Lemieux with Mark, and
Yeah.
then Nick owns the building
Mm-hmm.
that I'm in, and Nick and I are good friends. We've known each other for years, and he it was great to work with him. It was a challenge to work with Nick because we are so much the same,
Oh,
and
really?
he's very creative. And
Oh,
the difference is he Nick has this beautiful ability to um, dream and actually understand how it's going to happen.
like the
I have
logistics of making it possible
just yes, and I have this beautiful ability to dream and figuring out how to make it happen.
as
It's
you're
very
going.
different. Nick is much more uh, uh, calculated in how it's going to happen, and that's just not a trait that I have, and I wish I did. But we work very well together,
Good.
and it's always a pleasure to to work with him and Mark both. And Greg Larson is the guy out of North Dakota he's a large partner in the hotel as well, and
Fantastic.
he's great. So yeah, and then Saki
Uh-huh.
was my passion project.
Yeah, tell me more
Um,
about that. I haven't been there yet, so describe your vision to me.
it just opened. It just opened about a week ago at
Oh.
at at full steam.
Mm-hmm.
It's just uh, I love sushi,
Mm-hmm.
and I love Asia. I love Asian experiences. I love the decor, especially Japanese decor. So I automatically had um, this propensity to want to do something, Japanese.
Did you
And
spend any time there?
I did. I went to Japan once or twice over the past few years, but I went to Bali 4 times last year because
Oh.
that's where I had everything made. Like 90%, 10% of that restaurant is antiques,
Mm-hmm.
um, stone Buddhas and dragons, and
Mm-hmm.
the other 80 to 90% is just all custom made. I designed everything,
Wow.
and it's completely custom, and it is a spectacular restaurant. The food, I hired um, a few chefs long before the restaurant opened. Brian Emperor started his career. They're all Japanese trained, and Brian started out at Nobu in New York, and then his career just flourished over time. Chef Matoya, I got him from Fontainebleau in Las Vegas. He was the head, I think he was the head sushi chef there, and it took a lot to get him.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
imagine
I think
so.
it was two no's. I
Ooh.
think 2 no's before I got a yes.
So
But
you
very
couldn't
sure.
just say, "Hey, in Kentucky we have grass."
No, you know, Brian grew up in the horse business. His father, they had horses, or grew up near a racetrack or whatever. So he had a
Oh,
fondness for Kentucky already, and
okay.
um his I think it was one of his Michelin star restaurants was in North Carolina. Apparently, that was his favorite restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
and he always missed North Carolina, and he felt like Kentucky reminded him of North Carolina. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I think lured him to Kentucky. Matoya, I think, was looking for a challenge,
Hmm.
and he's such a creative sushi guy, and it's been just an incredible experience watching how they all work and what their skills are and what makes them incredible chefs and their creativity and their very stern attitudes about what they're serving and the manipulation of very natural food that appears like art on your plate.
Right.
Yeah. And Chef Kevin is the third chef. There's a lot of cooks, some of whom are Japanese, but Kevin has experience all over the place, and he is just a mastermind at not just making Japanese food, but prepping it and cutting things correctly and making sure that it's ready to be presented that night. And you watch him all day long, just chopping things into like sand,
Wow.
and it's just amazing. It's been such a beautiful experience watching it all come together. So that's open. It's getting great reviews. The food is
Hmm.
getting great reviews. The environment, the experiences. So I'm just really proud of that restaurant as much as I am all of them.
Yeah, definitely. And did I see you posted something about the door? Was there an issue with
Yeah,
the door?
I posted my really first social media post announcing that we were open yesterday,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I said three things that people would have to endure. Number one is our door. It's this gold building that was painted gold, and we had these two black doors that were original to the building because I had a 400-year-old Japanese door that was black with gold inlay. It was absolutely beautiful, and where it was being retrofitted, the warehouse burned down. This
Oh,
happened
it
about four.
burned down.
Yeah, that's why it disintegrated.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
that's
I'm
what I
so
said in my
sorry.
message that the three things you're going to notice. One is the front doors because they got burned up in a fire. The second was the bareness of the front of the building because I bought a temple, a stone concrete type temple that goes on the front of the building. It's beautiful. It's
Did you get it
it's
in Bali?
yes, I got it in Bali, had it made,
Hmm.
and there's a Buddha that lays across the top of it that's 8 feet long and laying down across the doorway. But I can't put it in because Nulu they're redoing all the. If you haven't noticed all the sidewalks in
Yeah.
Nulu, and mine for whatever reason is the very last sidewalk that they do, and
Hmm.
it probably they've said won't be done until July. I hope that's accurate. But so we haven't been able to install, and I haven't been able to um, install the our beautiful. It's a neon sign that I think it's about 10 feet tall, um, made here in Louisville, um, because they can't they can't deliver it because there are two telephone poles and a lot of wires on the side of the building, and we were working very closely with LG&E to get those moved, but that's not happening as fast as I want it to. So those are the three things that I sort of prepare you for when you pull up to the building because it looks quite stark. There's no sign, and it isn't Kevinized yet, but it will be.
It will be. I believe that.
Absolutely will be. Yeah.
And will our checks come in romance novels?
No, they won't. But I am working on. I'm thinking about anime books.
Manga?
Is that what it's called?
Well, that's what my
Manga?
son reads.
Okay, maybe.
If
I don't know
if
enough about
there
it.
is a difference between manga and any other kind of anime books,
Mhm.
I don't know. I'm sorry.
Okay,
My
it's
son will
probably
be able
called
to.
that then. But I'm
Yeah.
trying to find those books in Japan
Yeah.
for a cheap enough price that I can afford to use them. But that hasn't happened yet. So what you're getting these cute handmade books from Bali that have a cat on them, um,
Oh, well, that's
and that's what we're
adorable.
doing right now.
That's adorable. And it's so
No, it's
on brand.
adorable.
It's very on brand for you, though.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, it's my ode to Nugget. So I have to tell you, do we have time?
Yeah,
I have to tell you about. Um, there's a gong in the gong dining room, and it's a big Japanese gong. It's like loud and it's real and it's hundreds of years old,
yeah. Whoa.
um, and it is really loud. So I don't want people banging it because it's so loud. There's only one way you can bang the gong.
Okay.
I created, have created a drink. It will probably change still, but it's a very expensive drink. It'll probably be, well over $100.
Okay.
Um, it has caviar around the rim and gold flakes, and
Oh my.
it's and a very expensive um, bourbon and a couple other things that make it very unique. But the only way you can buy it's called the Golden Nugget after my little
Oh,
guy.
your OG nugget.
And the only way you can have that drink, the only way you can bang the gong is if you have that drink.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so, yeah, I have to make the drink expensive enough.
Yes.
And
So
I'm
that
not going to
people are
sell it
not
every
being
time.
annoying with the, yeah. So is it the Japanese Blantons or is
No,
it a
they're
kind of,
all we carry we carry American brands of bourbon, but almost all of our spirits come from Japan.
well, they
Um,
have that edition of Blantons that they just fly over to Japan and then they can fly it back and it has Japanese writing on the bottle,
I
but it is,
actually don't know about that, but I'm going
you
to
need
check.
to have it. It
I
is
will.
so good.
I'm going to check into it. But our whiskeys, because they're not called bourbons over there, are
Mhm.
stunning. They're beautiful, and
Mhm.
they compare in many ways to our excellent bourbons over here. But what I'm really trying to do is expose the customer to real, authentic uh, Japanese traditions and liquors, and our
Yeah.
wells are Japanese vodka, Japanese gin, Japanese whiskey, unless you ask for something very specific, which we will carry many American brands, but initially you will be offered a cocktail made with Japanese brands. We carry 60 sakis, only 20 of which, and I'm probably messing this up, but 20 of which we were able to initially get from local distributors, and then we helped pave the path or arrange the the ability to come into Kentucky, I guess, or the United
Mhm.
States even,
Mm.
um, for 40 of them. And there was a sake guy from New York in the restaurant yesterday doing a training, and he had indicated that we have one of the best sake, certainly for a city our size, but really one of the best sake lists in the United States. So,
Yeah.
I'm very open that I'm just now learning sake,
Mhm.
but there's a huge difference to over what we know as traditional sake as to what some of these sakes taste like. There's just night and day. So it's been a real interesting experience learning Japanese brands, which are very good, and the sake experiences. And that'll all be available to you as a customer when we
Yeah.
get open. We'll have tastings and sake experiences that you can buy with various sakes and
Oh
bourbons.
yeah. I'm probably going to need a flight. I know when I went to Arizona, I went to two different Japanese restaurants in Phoenix,
Mhm.
and they were both phenomenal. And I had a flight of sake at one of them, and that's when I learned I like unfiltered sake.
Yes,
Didn't you say you have
Nagori,
five unfiltered versions?
Nagori,
What was it?
it's Nagori.
Negori?
Unfiltered, and I that's one of my favorites. And they have wide variety of flavors too.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
I mean
Okay.
flavors, but not flavors necessarily,
Well,
but flavors based on
yeah.
how they're made and built. And yeah, it's one of my favorites too. And we have a number of those at Saki also.
Yeah, I can't wait to learn more about it. And I mean, it's only fair that we learn more about their authentic culture because Japan
Yeah,
is the biggest purchaser internationally of
yeah,
our Kentucky bourbon, right?
yeah. It's fair. It's trade. It's we're doing
Okay,
our part for the trade.
exactly. Yeah. And let me ask you about that since you're obviously contributing to the variation in the Louisville food scene. Well, what is your perspective on like the health and wealth of the Louisville food scene compared to these other big cities that you spent a lot of time in?
um, you know, Louisville. has always been, as long as I can remember, open to new ideas, and certainly when it comes to food and creative experiences. And now it doesn't mean they'll stay with you long if you can't perform, but they're open to trying them. And I think probably more so than a lot of cities. So I've always and continue to believe that if you have an idea or an opportunity that's unique and different and really does expand someone's thinking or knowledge or experience in the hospitality or the food industry, then you have a good chance of making it as long as you can perform and as long as you can execute consistently and constantly innovate to meet the to follow trends and meet the demands of the consumers. So I think overall, Kentucky's food scene is very strong.
Mm-hmm.
It's very unique, and there's always something new entering the market. With that, oftentimes something goes, but
Yeah.
there's never a shortage of new experiences in the city, and I've certainly not experienced a community that doesn't wrap their arms around my ideas and my projects. And but a number of occasions over the past 15 years, I am reminded very quickly when I let the ball drop.
Yeah.
In any of my restaurants, I'm reminded very quickly, and thank goodness, because I'm always doing something else, and I have to always go back and say, "Whoa, slow down," and put some energy, real serious energy into it. And that's just the roller coaster that the food industry, that this, that I guess the hospitality industry is always a part of.
Speaking of which, you started your career in crisis management, and do you feel like that helped you
Well,
as
it's
a
an element. It was an element of my
an
start of my
element?
career. Yeah.
But do you feel like that prepared you as a restaurateur for the challenges of COVID and 2020 being in the restaurant business?
Yes, most definitely. I handled COVID with expertise that I don't know that any restaurateur has ever had because of my um, corporate background in managing crises. But so, yeah, definitely that. But the bigger thing is
Hmm.
that what I've learned when I opened the first restaurant, and it's continued to proven to be true, is that probably the biggest reason for my success in this industry is that I understand marketing. I understand how to build a brand. I understand how to read the consumer. I've done so much consumer research in my career. I almost I can almost read the consumer without doing the research, but I still continue to do research. But and when you approach the business, like I said, I've never worked in a restaurant my whole life.
Hmm.
I've never been in a professional kitchen before Village Anchor,
Hmm.
but I didn't have to be. I had to create the experience just as I would have done in the agency and hired people to execute,
Yeah.
who can execute. And I had the foresight to do that. And I have the unique ability to brand and market. And I think that's clearly one of the things that has helped me be successful. And I'm not at all saying there aren't people also in the city who are good marketers. I bet there aren't many who've had the experience that I have, and entered the industry with no restaurant experience.
Right.
But that's how I can justify that success. And then again, you got to keep it going. If you can't cook, get out of the kitchen.
Right.
But but it's how I started, and I think it was very beneficial to me.
I think you're right because I've met a lot of like chefs who run their restaurants, and some of them are, more marketing minded than others. And if they're not marketing minded, they might have the best product in town, but nobody knows about it.
Right. Or yes, 100%. Or uh, they're just not. Some of them aren't good communicators. It's not something that they are trained in. They don't have anybody in their circle who can do that. And unfortunately, when you're starting a restaurant, money doesn't come fast.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to pay people to do things like that. So having that under my belt was definitely a benefit to me. Has been and continues to be.
That's awesome. So, do you have a favorite restaurant in town besides the ones that you owned and designed yourself?
Uh, Absolutely. Anybody who knows me, I don't dine out a lot at my restaurants or others. By the time I get home, I'm in the restaurants all the time, but I never really take the time to sit and eat. And I don't do it because there are enough occasions where I'm a part of a group that goes
Yeah.
in, or I'm hosting people that I get to experience my restaurants that way. So you'll never see me in the corner eating every night
Hmm.
at any one of the restaurants. But I do have my favorites, and one is it's always been special to me is Jack Fry's.
Hmm.
When I built the Village Anchor, I sort of had the history and the nostalgia of Jack Fry's in mind,
Oh,
because it was one of my favorite restaurants. Um, and then there are a number of others. I know most of the chefs and the managers or the
yeah.
owners managers in town, and um, there are just so many others. But Jack Fry's, I'm definitely willing to say has a special place in my heart, and I eat there as often as I can.
Yeah.
And Stephanie's great, who owns it, and she and I are friends, and it's just a wonderful spot. And if you haven't been there in a long time, I would strongly encourage you to do it. I also encourage you to go to mine, but
Of
also Jack
course. So
Fry's.
I've been to over 400 restaurants here in the Louisville area that are
Mhm,
locally owned and operated in the
mhm,
last 4 years
mhm.
because
Oh, you have
that's
me
the
beat.
time frame. Do what?
You way have me beat.
Oh, well, it's not a contest, but it's definitely been a discovery journey.
Mhm,
Um, and like you said, so many have opened since then. It's like I have this list that was running
mhm,
and I was adding to it, and there's always more. And I had to just tell myself, like, it is okay. If it doesn't make it, it wasn't meant to be.
mhm, mhm.
If I don't get to it.
Oh, you'll get to it. Yeah.
Well, like some of the ones that I have been to have unfortunately closed, even though
Yeah.
some of them were really lovely.
Hmm.
So, I'm
I get
trying
it.
to still get around. There's just,
Hmm.
I love the uniqueness that
Hmm.
people bring with their different ideas
Hmm.
because no two are the same. It's not like
I'll,
a franchise where it's supposed to be the same.
I'll give a shout out to really quick. I just happened upon a bar on Main Street called Tartan House. Um,
Yes.
and I met the owner at a function or one of my restaurants. I don't remember. And Aaron, the bartender there, one of the bartenders there, and it's become very quickly just a wonder. I love my bars. I think my bars all
Hmm.
stand out, and they're wonderful. But sometimes I have just to get away from my bars.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I love the Tartan House. So if you haven't, have you been in there? And
I haven't been, we have a group of foodies that get
yeah,
together and they went and I didn't get to go and they were
yeah,
sharing pictures, so I'm
it's just
properly
a great little.
jealous.
It's a little bar. It reminds me a lot of Jack Fry's.
Yeah.
And they're probably going to kill me for bring your friends and come in because it's a little bar, but it's just a beautiful little place. And Aaron's amazing, and the owners are amazing, and I give it
It
a thumbs up.
it looks like it has a great vibe for
Uh-huh.
just having a
It's just a
cocktail
cute.
and talking to
It
your
is.
friends for a little
Yeah,
while.
no food.
Yeah.
All handcrafted cocktails, but in a lovely, very casual, sort of upscale environment.
Yes.
So
Very
shout out to you guys.
awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to
You're
tell
welcome.
us your story, Kevin, and I
I
really
probably
appreciate
left out some details, but that's
it.
long enough.
That's okay. We can always do it again if you need
That's
to.
right. That's right.
Because
Yes.
it's been a pleasure getting to know you and your story and about the ode to nugget that I need to look out for at
Oh,
Saki.
thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Bless you for taking the time to and having interest in my background and my work, and
Thank
it's very special to me. Thank you very much.
you. Well, you put a lot of personality into your restaurants, and so I've been stewing with curiosity for a while. So thank you for helping slate my curiosity there.
We will
Uh,
get you into sake soon.
yes, definitely. That has to happen. I need to use that gong for real. Like
Okay. Well, after hours, or it's going to cost you one of the two.
Oh no, no. Yeah, it'll be worth it. But I gotta hear about these Japanese whiskeys. That's gonna be interesting.
Yeah, beautiful experience.
Yeah. So, if you've enjoyed this episode of the Lou Review podcast and you want to hear more of the founders of Louisville, whether it's business owners or nonprofit leaders, this is the space. So, subscribe wherever you are listening or if you're watching on YouTube. If you know of one of these people who needs to be spotlighted, leave it in the comments or send me a message. I'm also on social media at Rosa Raves. So feel free to reach out to me there as well. And I will see you in the next episode.